Last May, we took our daughter Rachel and some of her close friends to the Oregon coast for Rachel's birthday celebration weekend. On Sunday of that weekend, I was sitting beside the ocean with one of the kids. I was looking at the sand, and every piece was a different color and shape. I had never looked so closely at the grains of sand before, and I thought to myself, there's so much beauty in just 1 square foot of this beach. The sun was shining, and it was truly a perfect day. The waves were gently coming and going, and the tide was going out, revealing more and more rocks and starfish and other ocean wonders. I then said out loud, "This place of so much beauty, such wildness, demands, look at me." And my daughter's friend, who would be heading home in a few hours, then said, "I won't be here tomorrow, so for now, I just need to be in it." In that moment, the beauty of the sand and the sea expanded as I encountered the clarity and wisdom of this young person who understood the preciousness of the moment and the need to remain present to it. Just wow, right? She understood, as you and I know all too well, that we do not know what tomorrow will bring, where we will be, even if we will be. Yom Kippur is the essence of this not knowing. Yom Kippur reminds us to remember how small, impermanent, and powerless we are, that life is precious, and we don't know what is coming our way. And as we look into the eyes of our vulnerability, we recite the vidui, the deathbed confessional, not because we are dying, but because we understand that we might. We understand that we need to treasure our days because we just do not know. We imagine, what if this day was our last? And if so, what do we need to say or do if it were? This is deeply spiritual work. And thus it has never felt morbid to me. On the contrary, it has always felt quite life-affirming. Some sages say that Yom Kippur is our happiest day because this is the day where we are given a chance to transform ourselves for the better, which Judaism believes may very well be the key to transforming the world to be better. We begin our new year with the intention of this transformation as we honor how much we do not know. One way that we do this is by singing the Unatana Tokef that says, on Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed, who will live and who will die. The song goes on to say, Teshuvah, tzedakah, and tefillah, repentance, righteous deeds, and prayer will lessen the decree. This year, this is landing differently for me. In my rational mind, I do not believe or accept that turning to God, doing good deeds, and praying for one or all of my days will be a factor in if I will literally live or if I will die. I do not believe that life and death work that way. And surely, this is not the case for those who were killed on October 7th and all the innocents on all sides who have died every day since. It is not the case for those who have died in the recent tremendous storms in the southeastern United States, let alone any of our too many beloved ones who we have lost this past year. Having been through what we have been through this past year as individuals, families, a community, a people, and humanity. And now facing this prayer, I honestly feel angry toward God and this prayer. So many I know have expressed this too, largely in poetry and prayers, and some of which we will be saying over these and reading over these next 25 hours. Last October, I myself wrote a particularly painful poem that included the words, "I lost you, God," and "Your good God goodness tripped and fell and turned into dust." And in my poem I pleaded, "Let us see again your good light, lest we forget. For what if we forget you? Because your light forever diminished in the world. I never want it to come to that." And just this morning, I read a vidui, a confession written for God, part of which said, "I listen for the still voice, and in that blank, reeling silence, God speaks. Ashamti, I have become guilty. I have allowed disunity to grow among you, my children, and it tore you apart. I did not protect you from the terror that fell upon your communities. I let your eyes fall away from the bond that makes you brothers and sisters, and you were lost to fear and hatred. You cried out to me in the midst of suffering, and I seemed silent. He eveni, I have caused perversion. I have allowed hatred to flourish, and it has spread like wildfire through the land. I let you see only your enemies and forget the image of God and those around you. You have asked where I was when the world seemed to fall apart." And it goes on and on. This is the crux of some of our hardest moments as humans. Where is God when bad things happen to good people? The Unatana Tokef prayer tries to answer that, saying that it is actually largely on us, that what is said or done during the high holy days by us impacts what will happen in the year to come. But that cannot be why there were so many, too many, unbearably harsh decrees in this last year. I refuse to accept that. But of course, I do believe in us having responsibility, because we do. And I guess maybe if everyone everywhere, throughout all of history, really did their personal work of self-evaluation as teshuvah, and gave generously, living lives of righteous deeds as tzedakah, and prayed, aligned and grounded and focused to the highest good as tefillah, maybe the painful things would never have happened and could have been avoided. But that is not the real world. People are hurt and have been hurting and are turning to more hurting. And some bad things just happen. This is the truth of our lives. But maybe, after I acknowledge my anger and sadness, after I allow myself to give it over to God, who is truly the safest place to thrust and scream my pain and anger at humanity and at God, I need to remember my own advice. I need to not take the Unatana Tokef so literally this year, and remember to seek it as metaphor. The spiritual practice of Musar teaches that we have moments of choice, bechira moments, regularly in our lives. And the Yamim Noraim, these high holy days, by design, are structured to be like one big choice moment, asking us, what and how will you choose in your lives? What paths will you take? Which way will you go at the intersections you encounter? How will you respond to loss? What kindness will you offer? What is the aliveness you might foster? Or, as the great poet Mary Oliver asks, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Our Torah, just a few weeks ago, offered an answer. I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life. V'chata b'chaim. But what might this look like? My teacher and colleague, Rabbi Margot Stein, explored this very thing after the death of her son, who was only in his 20s. She said, I've been so overwhelmed with the sorrows that I haven't partaken of as much of its joys. But Judaism teaches us that we have an obligation to the Holy One to experience all the joys that come our way rather than refusing them. How many joyful opportunities have I missed because I just didn't see them? So focused was I on being responsible and responsive to the crises. And you can respond to crisis, but lose your responsiveness to life. You can become so committed to your anxieties and fears that you completely lose sight of the humor in being human. We have a choice, and the moment of choice is always now. It takes courage to choose life. It takes courage to let in the pain as well as the joy. It takes determination to stay awake and pay attention to your life so that you don't miss the opportunities for joy that come your way. Rabbi Stein was searching for herself what the Unatana Tokef really meant given her loss, and found a powerful spiritual answer. Last month, Rebecca Bardach, a cousin of Hirsch Goldberg Polin, one of the recently slain hostages, wrote in a similar theme. She said, we cannot choose what happens to us. We can only choose what we do with it. The ultimate tragedy will be if we, all of us, allow all of this to crush any hopes, efforts, yearnings for real change. The world is beautiful, bountiful, awesome, and wondrous. The world is also imperfect, unbearable, unpredictable, and so much bigger than us. And here we are, so small, trying to find a way through, treasuring it, negotiating it. We have a familiar parable in Judaism that we are to have a message in each pocket. We are dust, and we are little lower than the angels. Lest we forget what we need to remember, that we are mortal, and we can do big things. We will read tomorrow of the high priest Aaron, who is actively in mourning the recent deaths of his two sons. Aaron stands before God on Yom Kippur in the fullness of his humanity and vulnerability, unadorned with the fanciness and protection that he wears on usual days, and he brings his offerings for himself and for all the people for atonement, and they work. They purify and they atone and they matter. This is such an important metaphorical lesson for us. Similarly, we pray the Unatana Tokef, and when we do so, we are reminded that we are dust, but we are also reminded, and this year I'm really trying to remember, that we can do something that matters spiritually, not unlike the angels. And you might recall on Rosh Hashanah we read stories in our ancient texts of angels and God saving us and saving our cousins. And as you surely know, in our world there are people everywhere who are heroes making a difference every day. from the underpaid public school teachers who still show up every day, from the teenager who bakes brownies for friends recently returned home from a long absence, to the woman who shows up at a house of mourning with chicken and salad and cookies, to a man saving abandoned puppies during Hurricane Milton, to Bedouin people saving Jewish people at a dance festival where there was a terrorist attack. We matter. I recently heard a teaching by a beloved teacher, Rabbi Marcia Prager, about Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, who would often teach, in her words, "My friends, do not despair, for while hard times have come upon us, joy, simcha, must fill the air." And the holy Rebbe Nachman also taught, "Mitzvah gedola lihiyot simchat tamid." The greatest of all mitzvot of spiritual practice is to be continually in a state of simcha, of joy. But Reb Marcia points out, there is a problem with this teaching. If simcha means joy, then this greatest of mitzvot, of commandments, would be impossible to fulfill because simcha is not an honest expression of the spectrum of emotions that we must feel in our lives. And so simcha must mean something deeper and something bigger. She shared that for her, the answer to this question of the greatest mitzvah, the greatest of all spiritual practices, is to be alive right now, to be fully, completely, 100% present, which means being present not only to the joy, but also the pain, not only to the ecstasy, but even to the agony. And we must bring the full spectrum of our capabilities to every moment that we are alive. In other words, just be in it. Being present to all that is, treasuring the all of right now. And she said that ultimately this is the fuller and deeper and bigger and higher understanding of simcha. Tomorrow will always be a mystery for us. What will be in the Holy Land and the surrounding region, in our country, in our personal lives. So much is beyond our control. But we have this moment, a moment of possibility, a moment of perhaps, a moment of the capacity to heal, a moment to remember, a moment of awe, a moment of returning to light and hope and love, a moment to persevere, a moment to remember who we are and who we want to be, a moment to recognize those heroes, a moment to honor those who have died and bring merit to their names, a moment to not give up and keep trying, a moment to see the beauty, even if it is in just one grain of sand, a moment to listen, a moment to witness and learn from young people as they bring forth profound wisdom. Rabbi Margot Stein said long ago when she gave that speech in response to her son's death in the Unatana Tokef, she said, "Who shall live? Whoever seizes the gift of life and calls it precious, whether they have a half century or a half a month left to live. And who shall live? One who lives out loud and at full tilt, not perfectly, but with endless compassion for themselves and for all other beings. And who shall live? The person who faces down their fears and anxieties and says yes to life anyway. And who shall live? One who knows that experiencing sorrow and loss won't kill you. And since it won't kill you, strive to keep truly living as long as you are alive." Taylor Swift sings, "I'm afflicted by the not knowing." But Billie Eilish sings, "What was I made for?" We are afflicted to be sure, but let us keep asking ourselves, what were we made for? Even if we don't know if we will be here tomorrow. Even if we are but specks of beautiful, sparkling dust or sand, even if the wind roars in enormous storms, even if we are like Aaron, mourning and unadorned and entirely human, even if we are so angry and terrified, because we and our deeds matter. On this Shabbat of all Shabbats, this holiest of holy days, may we rise to this heartbreaking moment in time and to the truth of our mortality as our ancestors have done through the ages, and feel our feelings and remember the metaphors and accept the invitation of transformation and not give up, and treasure each moment and turn toward all that is and be in deep joy, in simcha, and know that we can do big things and be inspired and keep choosing life. May we do so for the sake of ourselves, for the sake of those of blessed memory, for the sake of those held captive, for the sake of those innocents caught in the crossfire of war, for the sake of our people, for the sake of our world. And may all of this be for healing, redemption, and yes, joy, simcha. Shabbat Shalom, v'gamar chatima tova.